Hey guys, Crowbar Zero here, and today I'm going to talk about Ultimate Weapon Plus. So I kind of split into three tiers: B tier, C tier, D tier. You know, basically above average, average, and below average. I also have a really cool table that was made by, hopefully I can pronounce their name correctly, Cosmiron Epos. They made the chart that's taking up the main chunk of the screen. That way you can actually see, you know, like, oh, hey, this is how much it costs to get some of these tools to add to your kit. But anyway, I'm going to jump into it, and the really easy one to look at is Econ. You know, standalone in that category would be GT Plus, and you know, I have it, you know, I don't have it in like, oh, this is going to be S tier, specifically because, yes, well, you know, you're maybe getting after, you know, 10,000 stone investment. Let's see. Oh, wait, no. Looks like it's closer to 7K, about 7.5K. Uh, um, investment that you put into it, you know, is times 3 coins. You know, at the end of everything, is that really going to be worth it? Um, you know, that's a choice that I think everyone has to kind of decide on their own. Yes, it's universally useful, but I think there's some other tools that are a little bit more worthwhile, especially going into Ultimate Weapon Plus initially. So, and that would be damage. So the two big sources of damage you're going to get is from SM Plus and Inner Landmine Plus. So for SM Plus, the downside is it's basically a weaker uh, spotlight missile. And if you max it out, you're only going to get like a missile. It acts more like a normal smart missile. You know, one missile every 5 seconds versus, you know, spotlight missile. You're looking at getting one every you know, was it 2 seconds, I think. But anyway, so, but on the plus side, it's pretty universally useful. There's not going to be too many battle conditions that are going to suffer from it, so it's going to help some of that consistency on at least hitting the boss with one of your smart missiles. Uh, Inner Landmine Plus, it actually kind of helps fill in one of the gaps that with Spotlight. And Spotlight plus smart missiles. So even if you do get smart missiles to go off and hit the end of the boss, you know, if it's not in Spotlight, especially later into the run, you're probably not going to be destroying that boss. Versus Inner Landmines, actually, the timing kind of works out nice, where it's like, if you miss with all of your smart missiles, where it's not in Spotlight, usually by the time that the boss gets to you, you have a pretty good chance of actually hitting it with Inner Landmine Plus. So it's kind of like your last ditch effort of like, please be in Spotlight, and don't screw me too bad, Spotlight RNG. So that's another tool. It definitely ramps up pretty quickly as far as damage goes, and you know, makes your inner landmines actually something worthwhile. So moving on to the C tier, you know, some of these have, you know, some uses. They're kind of nice, but they're not, kind of average, middle of the road. Still, you know, like a lot of the Ultimate Weapon Pluses, you know, all of these tools are really expensive. So just kind of keep that in mind before you really want to dive into these. You probably want to flesh out the basic Ultimate Weapons that you have to begin with. But jumping into it, we've got Black Hole Plus. Black Hole Plus is actually pretty cool in the sense that for each of your black holes, which is 2, each one will get basically a charge where it just deletes an enemy. And that's like, you know, that could be a tank, that could be a basic, you know, whatever. But, you know, it starts off with 1 and it goes up to 11 once it maxes out. It's really nice. Like, just having a tool to just, like, yeets an enemy, it doesn't matter how much hit points it has, it just, like, takes it out, kind of like orbs do, but doesn't suffer from penalties like, if you've got battle conditions that make your orbs or death ray or worse, both of them obsolete. You just like, oh hey, here's a black hole. Bloop, there's some enemies gone. Obviously, with black hole, you're gonna have issues with what they call shotgunning, where you can gather all these enemies in the black hole, and then it just releases all of them on you, and you're just not able to keep up with the attack. So, that's a danger. Obviously, this is a tool that you're going to be using more in farming runs than anything else, but it's it's a pretty cool tool. Next one that I put in the C tier is Poison Swamp Plus. So Poison Swamp, the damage isn't really remarkable, but with Poison Swamp Plus, you can get the damage maybe somewhat comparable to, like, if you had enemies in a black hole, that like 2% a second. Later in a run, that it's going to be skewed away from Poison Swamp. But if you have it high enough, you might actually be able to get some okay, damage on your standard bombs. Just kind of bleed them out a little bit. And help some of that smart missile damage. Obviously, that's probably a little bit later on. You would probably want to have, for both of those tools, you'll definitely want to have Smart Missile and Inner Landmine Plus both maxed out before you dive into those. D tier. So D tiers, oh man. D tier's got a lot of issues with it. So some of the tools are like, they're like, oh hey, maybe this isn't too bad, but it really doesn't give you much use. They're really weird. So I'm going to start with Chrono Field Plus. At first glance, it's like, oh yeah, hey, this is cool. It's an extra slow. Hey, everyone needs an extra slow. That's going to be freaking amazing, and it maxes out at like, I think it was 75%. I don't know, but anyway, right now I have mine at 15%, and just sitting back and taking a look at it. Yeah, mistakes were made, but I got it. Same thing with mistakes were made when I got Spotlight Plus. I thought Spotlight Plus did something else, but anyway, going back a little bit, I sidetracked myself there. Really, it's useful for juggling enemies at your range line with CF Plus. It makes it so that later on when enemies have are more resistant to knockback, it makes it a little easier to still juggle enemies. But if they get past your range line, then it's just all bets off, and it's your tower is just going to struggle to kick those enemies back. Especially true for fast enemies. So that's where having the lab, where you invest in reducing the fast speeds, are actually vastly more important than CF Plus. But I think it can help a little bit. But with what I have currently at only 15%, that's maybe my measuring stick isn't big enough to really see how worthwhile it is. But it seems like it's not really gonna harm you too much, but it's not gonna do a whole lot of good at the same time because of just how limited the range is for the enemy. And from what I've seen, it looks like it might actually be a little bit smaller than what's shown visually too. So just keep that in mind. Chain Lightning Plus, that is a completely different mechanic, has absolutely nothing to do with Chain Lightning. It's just like, oh hey, we're gonna hit a random enemy, which could be a basic, it could be a tank, it could be a boss. Probably not going to be a boss, but hey, if you ever get a boss hit with it, cool. It'll do whatever the category of damage at the time is. So like over here on the right where my mouse is, you can see like, oh hey, health is or 7.82 Q, it's going to do that damage to whatever enemy it hits. So some enemies it'll kill, other enemies it's going to scratch. Yeah, not really much control over where it goes or who it hits. Yes, it could kind of be useful, but right now, there's a lot of other tools that are, I think, much better. Especially, compared to like Black Hole that just outright deletes the enemy. Like, you're not worried about damage, you're just like, here it goes, it just deletes the enemy. Boom. Problem solved. Spotlight Plus. So instead of increasing the angle, we just get a larger range on our attacks with shots that are fired within the spotlight angles that you have. Originally, I placed this one a little bit lower, but luckily the bug was removed. Where originally Energy Net and Plasma Cannon would not fire off correctly for bosses that were in this. That bug was removed, so everything is working fine there. It feels like it does make it a little bit easier to dunk on enemies that are in Black Hole with it. Maybe if the range was stretched out far enough, maybe it could be good. Good at shredding enemies that are in Black Hole, but unfortunately you only have 50% coverage. So yeah, you'll be shooting in one Black Hole, but the other one's just collecting enemies to get released on you and take you out. So right now, until we get more angle on Spotlight, it's not really in a good place. If we ever get to the point where it's like, okay, we can max out the angle on Spotlight, I could see this actually being a worthwhile tool later down the road, but that's only if the devs decide to introduce a completely separate mechanic from all of this to help achieve that. And then we have Deathwave Plus. So Deathwave Plus, on the bright side, it makes Deathwave a lot more useful, I would say, compared to before, because it has some sort of mechanic that is going to maybe kill an enemy. It's like Chain Lightning Plus. It's going to spawn a ring, and whenever an enemy, certain number of enemies hit that ring, and that ring is like sitting right on your range line. It's a really bad placement. So it's not like, oh hey, enemies that you're juggling at your range line that get past will hit this thing. No, unfortunately, that's not the case. So if they do get something where SL angle or spotlight angle is increased to encompass 100%, and Spotlight Plus is able to push things farther out, that will make Deathwave Plus a little bit more of like a safety net. But for the time being, it's just like any random enemy could hit it, and it usually disappears extremely quickly. So, and it's only going to hit for whatever, basically how much health a basic would have. So basics will get killed, your procs will get killed, ranged will get killed, but tanks it'll take quarter damage and then 5% on bosses. So, how worthwhile is it? I'm just not feeling that one so much. But yeah, that's it on my list so far. Hopefully that's a little enlightening. For the most part, Ultimate Weapon Plus requires just a metric ton of stones to invest in these things. And overall, you're probably going to get more bang for your mile actually initially investing into some other tools, or doing something like, hey, I'm going to unlock SM Plus and Inner Landmine Plus just to help buffer the bosses a little bit, hopefully reduce some of that RNG, and then continue to flesh out the rest of my ultimate weapons before, diving anything, deeper into like C or D tier. As I mentioned, mistakes were made on my part. I invested in CF Plus and Spotlight Plus. Kind of regret it, but also I think I was one of the few people that actually invested in those. So I'm actually able to give the devs some feedback on like, hey, this is a problem. This is a really big problem. And at least one of those was fixed. But anyway, I will catch you guys later, and good luck with Tower.